Chapter 2 The Sacred Beetle. One. The ball. It is 6,000 or 7,000 years since the sacred beetle was first talked about. The peasant of ancient Egypt, as he watered his patch of onions in the spring, would see from time to time a fat black insect pass close by, hurriedly trundling ball backwards. He would watch the queer rolling thing in amazement, as the peasant of Provence watches it to this day. The early Egyptians fancied that this ball was the symbol of the earth, and that all the scarab's actions were prompted by the movements of the heavenly bodies. So much knowledge of astronomy in a beetle seemed to them almost divine, and that is why he is called the sacred beetle. They also thought that the ball he rolled on the ground contained the egg, and that the young beetle came out of it. But as a matter of fact, it is simply his store of food. It is not at all nice food, for the work of this beetle is to scour the filth from the surface of the soil. The ball he rolls so carefully is made of his sweepings from the roads and fields. This is how he sets about it. The edge of his broad, flat head is notched with 6 teeth arranged in a semicircle, like a sort of curved rake. And this he uses for digging and cutting up, for throwing aside the stuff he does not want, and scraping together the food he chooses. His bowl-shaped forelegs are also useful tools, for they are very strong, and they too have 5 teeth on the outside. So if a vigorous effort be needed to remove some obstacle, the scarab makes use of his elbows. That is to say, he flings his 2 legs to right and left and clears a space with an energetic sweep. Then he collects an armful of stuff he has raked together and pushes it beneath him between the 4 hinder legs. These are long and slender, especially the last pair, slightly bowed and finished with a sharp claw. The beetle then presses the stuff against his body with his hind legs, curving it and spinning it round and round till it forms a perfect ball. In a moment, a tiny pellet glows to the size of a walnut, and soon to that of an apple. I have seen some gluttons manufacture a ball as big as a man's fist. When the ball of provisions is ready, it must be moved to a suitable place. The beetle begins the journey. grasps the ball with his long hind legs and walks with his forelegs moving backwards with his head down and his hindquarters in the air. He pushes his load behind him by alternate thrusts to right and left. One would expect him to choose a level road, or at least a gentle incline. Not at all. Let him find himself near some steep slope impossible to climb, and that is the very path the obstinate creature will attempt. The ball, the enormous burden, is painfully hoisted step by step, with infinite precautions, to a certain height, always backwards. Then, by some rush movement, all this toil is wasted. The ball rolls down, dragging the beetle with it. Once more the heights are climbed, and another fall is the result. Again and again, the insect begins the ascent. The merest trifle ruins everything. A grass root may trip him up, or smooth bit of gravel make him slip. And down come ball and beetle, all mixed up together. 10 or 20 times he will start afresh, till at last he is successful, or else sees the hopelessness of his efforts and resigns himself to taking the level road. Sometimes the scarab seems to enter into partnership with a friend. This is the way in which it usually happens. When the beetle's ball is ready, he leaves the crowd of workers, pushing his prize backwards. A neighbor, whose own task is hardly begun, suddenly drops his work and runs to the moving ball to lend a hand to the owner. His aid seems to be accepted willingly. But the newcomer is not really a partner. He is a robber. To make one's own ball needs hard work and patience. To steal one ready-made, or to invite oneself to a neighbor's dinner, is much easier. Some thieving beetles go to work craftily. Others use violence. Sometimes a thief comes flying up, knocks over the owner of the ball, and perches himself on top of it. With his forelegs crossed over his breast, ready to head out, he awaits events. If the owner raises himself to seize his ball, the robber gives him a blow that stretches him on his back. Then the owner gets up and shakes the ball till it begins rolling, and perhaps the thief falls off. A wrestling match follows. The two beetles grapple with one another. Their legs lock and unlock. Their joints intertwine. Their horny armor clashes and grates with the rasping sound of metal under a file. The one who is successful climbs to the top of the ball, and after 2 or 3 attempts to dislodge him, the defeated scarab goes off to make himself a new pallet. The owner can only resign himself to his loss, which he does with admirable fortitude. He rubs his cheeks, sniffs the air, flies off, and begins his work all over again. I admire and envy his character. At last his provisions are safely stored. His burrow is a shallow hole, about the size of a man's fist, dug in the soft earth or sand with a short passage to the surface, just wide enough to admit the ball. As soon as his food is rolled into this burrow, the scarab shuts himself in by stopping up the entrance with rubbish. The ball fills almost the whole room. The banquet rises from floor to ceiling. Only a narrow passage runs between it and the walls, and here sits the banqueters, 2 at most, very often only 1. Here, the sacred beetle feasts day and night, for a week or fortnight at a time, without ceasing. Chapter 13. The Sisyphus. You are not tired, I hope, of hearing about the scavenger beetle with a talent for making balls. I have told you of the sacred beetle and of the Spanish copperas, and now I wish to say a few words of yet another of these creatures. In the insect world, we meet with a great many model mothers. It is only fair for once to draw attention to a good father. Now, a good father is rarely seen except among the higher animals. The bird is excellent in this respect, and the furred folk perform their duties honorably. Lower in the scale of living creatures, the father is generally indifferent to his family. Well, this enormous labor, which is one of building and provisioning combined, this toil in which the insect's whole life is spent, is done by the mother alone. It wears her out. It utterly exhausts her. The father, drunk with sunlight, stands idle at the edge of the workyard, watching his plucky helpmate at her job. Why does he not lend the mother a helping hand? It is now or never. Why does he not follow the example of the swallow couple, both of whom bring their bit of straw, their blobs of mortar to building? He does nothing of the kind. The real reason of his inactivity is sheer incapability. Very few insects are exceptions to this rule. This heartlessness, which would be detestable in the higher ranks of the animal kingdom, where the weakness of the young demands prolonged care, is excusable among insect fathers. It is strange that the most gifted of the industrial insects should know nothing of a father's duty. We are baffled at every turn by the question, why is a particular instinct given to one insect and denied to another? It baffles us so thoroughly that we are extremely surprised when we find in the scavenger the noble qualities that are denied to the honey gatherer. Various scavenger beetles are accustomed to help in the burden of housekeeping and know the value of working in double harness. One of them is the Sisyphus, the smallest and most zealous of all our pill rollers. He is the liveliest and most agile of them all, and recks nothing of awkward somersaults and headlong falls on the impossible rolls to which his obstinacy bring him back again and again. It was in reference to these wild gymnastics that gave him the name of Sisyphus. As you know, that unhappy wretch of classical fame had a terrible task. He was forced to roll a huge stone uphill, and each time he succeeded in toiling to the top of the mountain, the stone slipped from his grasp and rolled to the bottom. I like this myth. It is the history of a good many of us. So far as I am concerned, for half a century and more, I have painfully climbed the steep ascent, spending my strength recklessly in the struggle to hoist up the safety, the crushing burden of my daily bread. Hardly is the loaf balanced when it slips off, slides down, and is lost in the abyss. As in the sacred Beetles workshop, the accurately round shape is obtained without the mechanical trick of rolling the ball. The material is modeled into a sphere before it is moved, before it is even loosened from its support. Here, once more, we have an expert in geometry familiar with the best form for preserving it. The ball is soon ready. It must now, by vigorous rolling, be given the crust which will protect the soft stuff within from becoming too dry. The couple start off along the ground. They have no definite goal, but walk in a direct line without regard to the obstacles that lie in the way. In this backward march, obstacles could not be avoided. But even if they were seen, the Sisyphus would not try to go around them. Even on level ground, the carting is not carried on without difficulty. At every moment, the load swerves on some mound made by a bit of gravel, and the team topple over and kick about upside down. This is a trifle, the merest trifle. These trumbles, which so often fling the Sisyphus on his back, cause him no concern. One would even think he likes them. After all, the ball has to be hardened and made of the right consistency. And this being the case, bumps, falls, and jolts are all part of the program. This mad steeplechasing goes on for hours. The contents of the cellar consists of a single ball, a masterpiece of art. It is a copy of the sacred Beetles pair on a very much reduced scale. Its smallness making the polish of the surface and the elegance of the curves all the more striking. Its diameter at the broadest point measures 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch.